What's going on YouTube? In this video I'm going to show you guys how to install a stereo into an 01 Ram 1500. Now I'm going to be installing this into a 1500 because it's my personal car, but the methods I use, you can pretty much do this for any car. Installing a stereo is pretty straightforward, so I'm going to show you guys what I do. I'm by no means a professional, I just have been doing this as a hobby for the past 6 years. Before we get started on tearing anything apart though, we need to talk about what tools you're going to need in order to make your job as easy as possible. Alrighty, so the tools you're going to need to get this job done, first and foremost, your dash mount kit and your wiring harnesses. These are vehicle specific, so make sure that you go to someplace like crutchfield.com or Sonic Electronics and use their Outfit My Car feature. The reason for that is because you can put in your year, make, model, all that good stuff, and it will tell you exactly what fits your car, and it'll tell you exactly what wiring harness you need. With the radio, make sure you choose what radio you want after you find out what dash mount kits are offered for your car. You don't want to buy a double DIN radio just to find out that your car only fits a single DIN. So I highly recommend buying all of these things at once. Now these things you don't have to buy separately, these will come with your radio directly. If you are forced to ISO mount, or excuse me, if you're forced to DIN mount like I am in my car, this is a DIN sleeve and DIN keys. These are important because this is what's going to keep your radio from flopping around and flying out of the dash mount kit. Otherwise, you're going to have an ISO mount, which pretty much means you have little trim pieces that connect through the side by a bolt that will bolt directly into the OEM mounting locations. With my truck, I don't have that, so I have to use the DIN mount sleeve, which I don't like. Also, what you're going to need is some form of tools in order to pull all the hardware out of the dash that holds the OEM radio in. Now, the beauty of this Dodge, it's also a curse, is that I only need this one tool to get the hardware out that holds the OEM mounts for the dash kit. Downside is the dash trim pieces, which is normally what takes most of your time and most of the tools, is a press fit. So I don't have any screws or any bolts to pull out of the dash to pull that trim piece off. Problem is it breaks a lot because it's fragile. So depending on your car and your vehicle, every car is different. You might have trim panels that go around the dash that have more bolts. They might have Phillips head screws. Just make sure, if you're new to installing a radio, something like that, feel around the dash, make sure you find all of your screw and your bolt holes that hold the trim pieces in place. If you're an 01 Ram like me, don't worry about it, it's a press fit, it can just come right out. Next, soldering. I prefer to solder all of my connections when it comes to radio wiring harnesses. So I have here a soldering iron, rosin core solder, and then heat shrink. If you decide to solder, always make sure you use rosin core, otherwise you're going to have to use flux and it'll turn into a big mess and it won't look good. So if you don't want to solder, what a lot of shops do is they use butt connectors. Butt connectors are very quick, they're very easy. I just don't prefer that connection. I always solder. So if you choose to solder, you're also going to need a heat source to shrink the heat shrink, and then a pair of scissors to cut the heat shrink. Also, what you're going to need is your manual for your radio. Reason for that is because even though most of the industry standards have come to just color coordinate between aftermarket radio manufacturers and the aftermarket wiring harness manufacturers, it's always a good idea to have your manual out for your specific radio that will have the wiring diagram for the radio's harness. For the most part, all of the Metra and Scosche wiring harnesses will have the well, you're not going to be able to see it because it's too dark. It says on the exact wire, it says what it is. Right front, left positive, or right front positive, left front positive, constant, 12 volt, ignition 12 volt. So with the Metra kits, it's easy because you just have to look at the wire and it tells you what it is. But sometimes radio wiring harnesses don't. So for instance, this Kenwood has no identification as to what the wires are. And even though for the most part they're color coordinated, you always need to make sure you're connecting the right wire to the right wire. So this has a wiring harness or the wiring diagram for your harness. Make sure when you're soldering or butt connecting, whatever you're doing, that you know what wire is going to what wire. And that's pretty much it. So now we can get to the soldering. Okay, so connecting your harnesses together. There's two types of harnesses that you're going to work with. You have your radio harness, which plugs directly into the back of the aftermarket radio you bought, and then you have your integration harnesses. These are the harnesses that connect with the factory harness that's in the dash. So here's how they work. Your integration harnesses are vehicle specific. They are built with a plug that will only match your year, make, and model. What they do is they take all of the signal, like your power, your ground, things like that, and they connect it directly with the radio harness that plugs into your aftermarket radio. They're connected together by function. So, for instance, as you can see, I'm soldering my red wires together. Not because they're the same color, but because they're the same function. That red wire on both harnesses happens to be 12-volt ignition. Same thing with the yellow wire. That yellow wire has the same function on both harnesses. It's my 12-volt constant. This is how you're going to connect all of your wires together. You're going to reference your radio manual to make sure all the wire functions on the radio harness are matching the wire function on your integration harness. Now, with all of your integration harnesses, they come different. Some have the function printed right on the side of the wire, like this metric kit I have. However, some don't, but they'll come with a little instruction booklet that tells you what wire function is what. So, always have both of those open. It's important that you always double and sometimes triple check to make sure you're connecting wires together by function. Now, if you have things like navigation or steering wheel controls or even stock amplification for your stock speakers, when you enter your information about your car, you'll be prompted with all of these extra harnesses. If you have these extra harnesses and you need them, it's going to be the same kind of installation process, connecting all of the wires together that have the same function. As for this vehicle, as you can see, I'm only connecting a few wires. This is because I only really need my power, ground, ignition, and that's pretty much it. The reason for this is because I don't use any of the dimmer wires or any of the speaker wires because I have an aftermarket amplifier that I'm using to power my speakers. But if you want to use the stock speakers, or if you want to use the stock speaker wires and connect it to the head unit, you're going to be connecting all the speaker wires on both harnesses together. And remember, the main focus here is just connecting the wires together by function. Alright, so I had to switch to the wide angle just so I can get a better shot of everything that needs to be done. But the next step in getting everything in is pulling your dash trim pieces off. Now, depending on your car, again, you might have more or less trim pieces in here. So take into consideration what pieces need to come off in order to access the radio. Normally you can find either forum posts or directionals online on how to take trim pieces off for specific cars, but if you don't, it's really just a matter of feeling around your dash to find out if and where you have mounting holes. So for the most part, manufacturers like to hide bolts on the undersides of things, and they also like to hide bolts with little rubber grommets. So just take a minute, look around, make sure you don't have any kind of bolts, things like that, holding the trim into place. As I mentioned earlier, 01 Rams have a press fit dash trim piece, and it's only one piece, so only one thing needs to come off, which is really nice. The downside is it's plastic, so it likes to break. But as you can see, all you got to do is pull off. I've already got this pre-pulled. There are some cracks up here. Again, press fits are very fragile. Be careful with them. But as you can see, I've already pulled this off, and all you need to do, really, this is my voltmeter, slowly but surely work your way around the edge until you feel everything kind of snap. Now, obviously, mine isn't going to be as difficult as it might be to get yours off if you've never pulled it off before. Just be sure that you're very careful not to snap anything. But as you can see, it just takes a little bit of working, and there it is. So that's the trim piece completely off. So now that the dash is exposed, you can see exactly where your mounting holes are. So for the 01 Ram 1500, this is a single cab. My stock mounting holes are right here and right here. So if we take a look at this right here, this way, it fits right above the two mounting spots for our trim piece. We've got one right there and one right there. So all I need to do now is take the wiring harness, which we have already soldered and heat shrink, and I need to plug it into the back of the wiring harness, the OEM one. One is right here, one is right here. Then I also have a totally separate ground wire. I don't know why it's like this, but this is my ground wire, so we're going to ground it there. And then I have my RCAs. If you have an external amplifier like I do for your mids and highs, then you can plug these in. This is your antenna also. And just a note that, again, I'm not using any of these speaker wires because my speakers are amped, so I don't have to worry about hooking these up. If you don't have an amp, you will, again, need to use these in conjunction with the OEM on the harness. So you would just connect these to these, the exact same way you did it with all of the power and remote wires. Now that we have all of this figured out, we've got all the wires that we need out and ready to go. What you want to do is you want to set up everything that's going to be needed to go in with your dash mount kit. If you are using an ISO mount, which means you have factory bolt locations somewhere on the inner areas of your dash, and you'll have little flanges that connect right here or some other way. Normally it'll come on the dash kit you order directly. What you're going to do is you're just going to have bolts that go directly into the sides of your head unit right here. It'll go into the sides right there and right there. Your flanges will bolt in directly to these sides. Then those flanges will either bolt directly to the dash kit or onto the mounts on in the dash itself. As you can see, that's not the case for the O1 Ram. There's absolutely no way to mount these. So what we have to do is we have to DIN mount. And I'll show you how to do that right now. Here's how you DIN mount. Very simple, very easy. This is my old dash kit. It's a little bent up. I had the radio stolen, but it still worked. To DIN mount, all you're going to do is you're going to use your DIN sleeve, which is this. You're going to set it in to your dash mount kit. With the DIN mount, all you're going to do is you're going to take your DIN sleeve right here, and you're going to use this edge with the lip, and you want to make sure that edge with the lip is going to go flush up against the inner lip on your dash mount kit. So you just want to try to press fit it through here. It's a little tight squeeze. It'll fit, and it presses right in through just like that. And now your DIN sleeve is in there, good to go. Next thing you want to do is you want to make sure you pull back your tabs, which is going to keep it from going back out. So you can use something like a flathead screwdriver as long as you get the flaps pulled out. So what I'm going to do is just use my fingers here. If you're done with this, your radio will slide right into your ISO or your DIN, and kaboom. And it won't fall out because, again, these flanges are keeping it from going forward. So from here, you just go ahead and mount it directly into the dash. In order to get your head unit out of this DIN sleeve, all you do is you use these DIN keys. You're going to pull this trim piece off, and right here down the sides you can see this little area right here. This DIN key is going to slide between the sleeve and the head unit. What it'll do is it'll free it up and it'll just slide right down, and then you can pull your head unit out. Alright, so now that we've got everything set up and we're good to go, make sure you disconnect the negative terminal of your battery, and then you can start plugging all of your things in. So, after you've disconnected the battery, we're going to start with the ground, and then just go harness by harness. And then the final one. There we go. So now all the wires, all the harnesses are good to go. We can now plug this in directly to the head unit. Now we do all of our RCAs, and then just like that, and now you see that our dash mount kit sits perfect. These Dodge Rams, relatively easy to install radios, so I only have two these little bolts that have to go in. Here's one. Alrighty, so now we're going to reconnect the battery, and then after, we're going to test to see if everything works. We don't want to put the trim back on and then turn this on and then realize that the head unit, maybe you wired something wrong and then you got to take everything apart again. So, on to here, head unit power's on. So as you can see, head unit is working just fine. Press volume knob. So now, all you need to do is replace your trim. Just go backwards, just the way you started. With the O1 Rams, it's just a simple press fit. With other cars, just reverse the steps. And then set your amplifier's gains accordingly to your new head unit, and you should be good to go. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this was helpful. Bye-bye.